Moving on for now to our other top focus, over 800 ceasefire violations by Pakistan last year, and since the beginning of the new year, Pakistan has kept up a drum fire of shelling. On Sunday, it used an anti-tank guided missile against an Indian Army post in Rajouri, killing 4 brave hearts. More in this detailed report.
This is the welcome Captain Kapil Kundu received when he first visited his village in Gurugram in December 2016, shortly after being commissioned into the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry. 6 days short of his 23rd birthday, he fell victim to Pakistani firing in Bimber Gali sector of Rajouri district on the line of control. He was one of 4 soldiers killed. Army sources said Pakistan used anti-tank guided missiles to target India's forward posts. Among others to die were Rifleman Ram Avtar and Subham Singh and Havildar Roshan Lal. Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh warned of retaliation. Senior army officers hinted the killings would not go unpunished.
Near the place where this officer and this men were, and unfortunately we've lost them, and we will continue with our process of giving a befitting reply.
Over 800 ceasefire violations by Pakistan were reported last year. This year, too, the frequency has been much higher. It underscores the point by the Indian Army brass that the 2003 ceasefire on the line of control exists only in the imagination.
India's Vice Army Chief today said that India will retaliate effectively to the ceasefire violation of Pakistan. Yesterday, 4 soldiers, including a captain, was killed in the ceasefire violation of Pakistani troops, in which they used heavy mortar shells and anti-tank guided missiles. Last month alone, 14 deaths have been caused by the ceasefire violation of Pakistan, which includes 6 soldiers. Back home, the life of civilians is under threat as well. Yesterday, 1 civilian was injured, and many schools have now been shut down after the unprovoked ceasefire violation of Pakistan. Reporting for WION in Srinagar, Khalid Shah with camera person Farooq.
Moving on, the only surviving member of the Islamic State cell that attacked Paris in November 2015 is appearing in public for the first time since his arrest nearly 2 years ago. Salah Abdeslam goes on trial in his hometown of Brussels today. The charges he faces in Brussels are not related to events in Paris, but to a shootout he had with the police while on the run in Belgium. Security is high at the Brussels courthouse, with armed guards and multiple checkpoints leading to the courtroom where he is to appear. More than 100 policemen are expected to be deployed in and around the mammoth 19th century Palace of Justice, which dominates the skyline over the Renaissance City Centre. Meanwhile, Abdeslam's trial in France is not expected until next year. He was not charged over the Islamic State suicide bombings in Brussels. A week after the shootout and 4 days after his arrest, though, prosecutors say the March 22nd attacks, which killed 22 people, were triggered by the cell's fear that Abdeslam might reveal plans for a new attack in France under interrogation. And Jack Parrick, our correspondent, is now joining us from Brussels for more on this. Jack, first bring us up to speed with the developments in the court.
Well, it's just resumed after the lunchtime session. It's just after 1:30 here in Brussels. And this morning we heard a little bit more from Salah Abdeslam than we expected to. Since his arrest, he has not spoken and given any information to French prosecutors and French investigators. And today, this huge operation to get him here, this enormous security operation, has resulted in him saying to the court that he will remain silent. But the fact that he said that is significant. He says that his silence is his defence, and blamed the court for an anti-Muslim bias, saying that he is not presumed to be innocent until proven guilty within this court.
Jack, I also want to ask you, how much of media attention is that trial getting in Brussels, and how soon do we expect a verdict in the case? Do we have a timeline as of now?
We really don't know much about the administration, how long the trial will last at the moment. We know there's 4 days of it set up today, but it will depend on his plea, it will depend on the evidence that's given, on what the lawyers put forward, how much they want to interrogate different witnesses, etc. So at the moment we don't know too much about the length, but this is the start of just one aspect of court dates. So this man, Salah Abdeslam, the 28-year-old, is presumably going to spend a lot of time in court over the coming years. Firstly here for this trial in Brussels, but also for the trial in France. And everybody in France and Belgium has got their eye on this trial. The Belgian media have a huge presence here, but also the international media. It was such a media storm with those 6 months through the Paris and Brussels attacks and the manhunt for Salah Abdeslam.
India has been the largest troop contributor to the United Nations mission since the inception. So far, India has taken part in as many as 43 peacekeeping missions. WION is on ground zero, exploring what it takes for the Indian Army personnel to serve in a foreign land. WION is the only channel covering the Indian peacekeeping troops in the Democratic Republic of Congo. India's soldiers of the UN peacekeeping force safeguard the most important strategic site in Congo. WION's political editor Karthikeya Sharma brings you an exclusive ground report of their efforts.
This is GOMA Hill in Congo, one of the most important strategic sites. It's top of a hill. On one side you've got the lake. You have a deep harbor. It's one of the deepest lakes in Africa. It's called Lake Kivu. Goma Hill was occupied a couple of years back by the militants, so the job has gone to the Indian Army. Obviously, it works under the auspiceship of United Nations Peacekeeping Force, but Indians are the one who are holding this ground. So you have this vast, deep lake, and on the other side, you have the town. I'll go back to Lieutenant Colonel Jasmeet Singh, but you see the town. You see this town. You have an airstrip there. And you have Indians, the men in olive, guarding this town, the lake, which touches Rwanda, because one has to understand how porous the border is. I'll ask my camera person, Manish, to pan the camera to his right, and I'll show you how porous this area is. The mountain you see there, the first ridge, that is Rwanda. So imagine the first ridge is Rwanda. On the back of the town, you have a lake. And this town has to be stabilized by none other than men in olives at a time when you have got budgetary cuts. So you have a problem of budgetary cuts. For example, we had more than 20 bases, and the bases have been cut down. So which means that even the doctrine in terms of area domination changes. The troops have to be moved out more rapidly. You have got rapid deployable battalions also. But on all of this, I'll be joined by Jasmeet. Jasmeet, tell me, how important is this area for you people?
As you've already seen, this is a place which is the vantage point. It actually dominates the complete Goma town. Now all the critical assets, that is the harbour, the port, the airstrip, as well as the town, can be dominated in case we are holding on to this location. Also, all the communication, as you can see to your back, there are a lot of communication towers and the television towers. So it also is a communication hub from which all the communication of Goma town is.
Basically, you are basically telling me, you take this spot away, you actually take away the telecommunication, radio, all sort of electronic communication equipment, and you can actually jam them from the town.
Yes, because all the towers are located, because this is, as you can see around, this is the only vantage point, the highest point here from where the various communication towers are working. It was taken over in 2012-13 by the M23 when the M23 had come in. But now it is with the UN, and this responsibility has been entrusted to the Indian contingent to maintain and upkeep this strategic asset at Goma.
So how many people do you deploy? It's modest number. How much it takes from your part to deploy people here to protect it? Because, the lake is very porous. You have got the Rwanda at back. You have got a town which you dominate, but then terrorists cross over, belong to other countries also.
If we are talking about Goma Hill per se, as you can see, the deployment space is restricted. We have a platoon strength at Goma Hill. The balance assets for looking after the complete Goma town, we have a complete battalion here which looks after the security of the Goma town. But for the Goma Hill per se, it is a platoon strength which is on this hill.
Thank you, Jasmeet. So the bottom line here is that the peacekeeping mission is not about just staying in a garrison, holding a garrison. It's also about holding a town, holding a height, holding a view, and holding a position which dominates far-flung areas. And that's what this hill does for the Indian Army, for the United Nations peacekeeping forces. It dominates the view from the right, from the left, so that in future the hill cannot be taken again. With camera person Manish Srivastav, Kartikeya Sharma from Goma Hill for WION.